How's it going, YouTube friends? It's your boy Optima, back with a brand new episode of our Create or Replicate series. This is a series where we prioritize creating our own fun concepts or either using someone else's fun concept, maybe refining it or using it as is. No matter, we are just prioritizing having fun with decks that we find fun. Whether those happen to be meta decks or not is unimportant. It's all about just enjoying this beautiful game with friends, because we do sometimes have friends on as well to join us for the fun, especially for showcasing their deck. But today it's just going to be me. Hope you guys don't mind that, and I do have quite the fun deck for you all, so I hope you guys enjoy today's video and just the journey that it took for me to get to this point with this deck. And it's part of why I just haven't really been going kind of ham with this series, and I definitely want to bring more of it because I have my most fun with Legends of Runeterra when I am building decks. So I want to bring more of this to you guys, and if you guys want to see more, if you want to see more of my creative ideas, even if they're unrefined, even if they're not great, because that's kind of the pressure I always put on myself, like, oh, I need to perfect it, it needs to be as good as possible. If you guys would just want to see even my unfinished, unrefined ideas, definitely let me know in the comment section below. But also you can show love to that like button, which will also let me know you guys want to see more of this series. And if you are new, make sure you get subbed up, because there's just a ton of content that you may enjoy on this channel. So make sure you get subbed up and hop along for the ride. I hope you guys enjoy. And yeah, let's talk about today's deck. The way I was able to get to today's deck is pretty early on into this Garden of the Ancient expansion, the one we're currently experiencing with Aurelia, Zillion, and Malphite as the new champions, along with some other cards to follow that up. I started finding myself really not having that much fun. Pretty early on into the expansion, people were able to realize the immense power of Azir Aurelia and just kind of how hard it is for a lot of decks to compensate for the relentless pursuit that deck puts on you, with just attacking, even when they don't have the attack token. And yeah, that people realized that early on, and that made for an interesting experience as far as being someone who likes to really take their time and have fun with a lot of different concepts when we get a new expansion. Like myself, all my decks are just getting smacked around by Azir Aurelia, and if it wasn't Azir Aurelia, it was Thresh Nasus or some other just decently strong concept. And it felt like also Azir Aurelia was one of the only new decks we really got. I know there is like the Matrian Cithria Lady of the Clouds deck, but I'm a huge hater of that deck. I really dislike that deck because I just think that Spectral Matron works very, I don't know how else to put it, stupidly. I hate the way that he works, and I think it's part of why the Watcher feels terrible. So I'm all for something being done to Spectral Matron, and for that reason, I refuse to play a deck that uses a card that I think should be nerfed in some way, especially long term. Like, if you're not going to nerf Spectral Matron now, you absolutely need to do it long term as far as like continuing to get big units. So I didn't want to use that deck, and then it just felt like Azir Aurelia, and we all know how overdone that concept is at this point. But even early on in the Gardens of the Ancient expansion, I was feeling that way, like, that's already overdone, none of my new concepts are working, I'm not really having fun, what is there to do? So I just thought I gotta deck build better. I gotta look at more matchups, I gotta look at more stats, I gotta see what's being successful, I gotta see what's not working, I gotta look at all these metrics, all these stats, all this more, and really just compare, contrast, and really figure out what that perfect deck is that people aren't really giving a chance right now. Especially because I wanted something new. Like, I didn't want to go back to Overwhelm or try to play some Deep now or any of that. I wanted something new. So I really needed to analyze all this data that I possibly could. And after absorbing, after just looking and reading and getting all the information I could on this meta, and really focusing, honing in on what exactly I could present as maybe even an anti-meta deck to what we're currently seeing on ladder and just overall in the meta, I came to the conclusion that I had to net deck someone else's idea. And the reason being was just that I was stumped. I didn't know what concept to try at this point. I tried a lot of the stuff I wanted to try. The new skins even came, and I had already tried Yasuo and Zed, so I didn't really go too hard with them. Once the skins come, I already gave that a chance, and it wasn't great. And I didn't go too hard with Yasuo, but I don't know. I kind of just quickly was like, I don't feel like anything's pushing him anymore, that much more forward. Since quickly I realized that the Eye of Raharok's just, it's hard to play landmarks that cost 5. Like, that's tough. So yeah, I gave up on those guys. And the other skin was Shyvana. I gave her a real solid chance with some interesting concepts that weren't just the Targon Demacia deck, but that didn't work out. So it's like, if you want to run Shyvana, just do the good deck. I came to that conclusion. And yeah, and that deck just wasn't hitting right for me. It wasn't enough for me. So thankfully, I eventually came across on Mobilytics someone within the Masters and Platinum range that was able to go on like a 65, maybe a little bit higher win rate with this very fun Riven deck. And this deck is going to be Blade Scouts. And when you hear Blade, you may initially think of Aurelia, considering how much we've been getting suffocated by her blades. But I'm actually referring to the other Blade, the woman who also wields a blade, not blades, but a blade. And that is going to be Riven, who loves her Blade of Exile. And yeah, Riven is a champion that I feel like a lot of people kind of shifted away from after initially giving her some time, just because a lot of people are like, oh, she's fun, she's cool, but she isn't great. And I feel like even once she got buffed, because they did a small buff to her, I may put it on the screen somewhere because I don't remember what her buff was, but even once she got buffed, I don't feel like enough people really gave her another shot. And we did see Swim Shrimp. I'm saying Swim Shrimp because I didn't see anyone do this before him. Maybe they did though, but we did see Swim mess around with the Draven Riven deck that's just like so many spells and just tries to pretty much go all in on Draven or Riven and just win the game. But that deck's a little too, I would say, all in on one kind of thing for me. And I think this deck has a lot more versatility but still works similar to that concept. So that's what I was able to achieve, and I feel like this deck is finally refined enough to where I am happy enough to share this with you guys. So I hope you guys really enjoy this deck. There'll be a link in the description. Not really a link, there'll just be a code, so a bunch of numbers in the description of the video so that you guys can play this deck and check it out yourselves. I would love to hear your thoughts on it if you do actually try it. And also, I would love to hear if you feel like there's anything you can do to further optimize it, because I think it's pretty refined now, but if there's something you guys think you can do more with it, I would love to hear that. And I made a ton of changes from the initial version that I want to kind of show how I got to that with you guys. So I'm going to try to go over that quickly so that we can get you guys 3 games with this deck, because the games are the most hype part, so that you guys can really see my mindset as I'm going through these games with this deck. So let's jump on over to our deck builder here, and let's just go over this deck now. So we're here, but really quickly, before we just hop right into things, I just want to hop over to Mobilytics and show you guys the, and that's not it. That is our refined version now. But yeah, show you guys the, why is that not working? There we go. Show you guys the initial version of this deck, because this is the initial version of this deck that I found, and it's very unrefined form, and that is, and you could just tell it's unrefined with just how there's 3, no draw, and just, yeah, just 3 of everything. And even this deck was able to do well once again in Masters and Platinum, and I went on an insane win streak with this unrefined kind of bad version of this deck. So it really just shows there actually really is a concept here, especially in the current meta. Like, Challenger is good in the current meta, and especially Challenger when you're giving quick attack to Challenger units or to Scout units. So it really shows that there's a concept here, but you really have to get familiar with the deck before you can really feel good about the concept. It's definitely not the most straightforward deck by any means, but this was the initial concept, and now we have this beautiful deck that did add in some LeBlancs, remove some Quins, added some units that absolutely needed to be added, and also kind of minimize some of the other units that weren't as impactful, and then really changed up the spells, especially added some draw and other things that were really impactful. So let's just quickly try to go over all of that without taking up too much more of your guys' time, because like I said, I do want to I'm over here messing out. I do want to showcase the games with the deck, and I don't want this video to be egregiously long, because I know how that fares on YouTube. So yeah, so anyways, let's go over the deck. So the deck is going to start out with and once again, the concept of the deck is giving those blade fragments to the scout units. So let's just kind of try to go over how that all works together within this deck. So first and foremost, we got 3 of Blade Squire, and Blade Squire is a unit that needs to stay at 3 because one drops are really good right now. Just there's a lot of aggro decks on a ladder, and then there's also like a Zero Relia is like a combo aggro deck that still kind of aggroes you out. So having cheap units that you don't mind trading into things, because especially like Blade Squire, he has Last Breath, so he's actually also doing something while being a cheap unit. He's doing something really impactful because getting those reforging, getting those blade fragments is very vital to your win con, which is either Riven or your scout units, and both of them want those different blade fragments. So yeah, Blade Squire, absolutely need 3 of it. Very impactful unit and does really good stuff. From there, you got Fleet Feather Tracker, and Fleet Feather Tracker is they're going to be the first challenger unit, really solid challenger unit. It can trade with Aurelia right now in the meta, so that's really cool. Lots of units with 2 health that are pretty impactful that you can just throw the Keen Blade onto. Now Fleet Feather Tracker just takes them out, and you still have your Fleet Feather Tracker. It's just a good unit. You can even boost its stats, so now it's like, let's say you give it weapon heal, now it's a 4/1 and it's trading into like a big unit. Just a lot of versatility that the package of Riven and the rest of this cards provides a card like Fleet Feather Tracker. Like, one thing I even like with Fleet Feather Tracker is even sometimes giving it repost and reposting onto Fleet Feather Tracker. So now it's a 5/1, and now I can trade into 5 health units, which is once again really nice for this deck to continue to just like keep your units but remove your opponents. So just really cool stuff. And once again, I think challenger units are in a good spot within the current meta, and Blade Squire and Fleet Feather Tracker are really cool because, like, if your opponent doesn't have a turn 1 play, you Fleet Feather Tracker, you attack, and the next turn you Blade Squire, and you just already are starting to develop like a decent bit of units and that are doing impactful things but are just insanely cheap. From there, you get Brightsteel Protector, and Brightsteel Protector is one of the most important cards in this deck because it's just super vital that you use this card correctly and maximize its effectiveness to ensure that you're a little ahead when it comes to like the initial start of getting Riven set up. So pretty much the way Brightsteel Protector is going to work is it's going to slap barrier onto your challenger units. So Fleet Feather Tracker likes that, but the main one you really want to do that with is Trifarian Glory Seeker, because a 5/1 is 2 things. It is extremely strong offensively, but extremely bad defensively. And the thing about Trifarian Glory Seeker is there's a lot of weak units that people play on turn 2, so you can find yourself attacking for 5, but into a terrible little wimpy unit that you didn't really want to trade with. So Brightsteel Protector is an awesome way to avoid that. You can't avoid it until turn 4, but it's kind of works out because Riven, as long as you're attacking on evens, because Riven likes being played on your defensive turn 3, so that you're getting the attack token on turn 4, and then you're reforging on turn 4, so that you're getting closer to playing those blades and getting that Blade of Exile. So doing Riven on turn 3 defensively, and then on turn 4 offensively, going Trifarian Glory Seeker into Brightsteel Protector is extremely effective. And yeah, it just really solid for putting you just a little bit ahead on board state, so then your opponent's focused on stabilizing, while you can then just focus so much on getting your units boosted up for a huge lethal swing, hopefully, or at least near lethal swing. So yeah, Brightsteel Protector, you absolutely have to maximize the way you use this card. It needs to be used in the correct way, and you should not feel anxious to play it. It needs to be used effectively by far, but it is a very important card in the deck. From here, we're going to have Runeweaver. Runeweaver is a card who I messed around with the quantity a decent bit, just because it felt like other things need to be in the deck, but Reforge is one of the most important things as far as winning the game. So I did end up settling on 2 because you absolutely need to be reforging, and getting a 3/1 through also reforging is actually really solid. And 3/1's also an underrated stat line. Yes, it is easy to pick off with like Mystic Shot and things like Wild Feast, but at the end of the day, if they don't have any of that to their disposal, 3/1 allows you to trade into things like Merciless Hunter, Bakai Sandspinner. There's a lot of strong units that just only have 3 health. So yeah, it is a decent, it's actually one of your main units that you actually feel okay with blocking with. So another reason why it absolutely needs to be in the deck, because it's actually a blocker and not a lot of other stuff in this deck wants to block. From there, you're going to get into Sharpsite. Sharpsite being one of the most impactful cards in the deck, especially as far as spells, because this allows you, like, there's so many elusives in the Zero Relia package, allows you to actually defend those. You got Zoe still running around being a menace, really strong elusive card, so allows you to do something about that. More importantly, just the inherent stats you gain from this are really, really solid. And then also, for Trifarian Glory Seeker, you have a ton of units that only have 1 health. Because Blade Squire, Fleet Footer Tracker, Rune Weaver, Trifarian Glory Seeker, and Grizzled Ranger all only have 1 health. And then, like, even LeBlanc only has 2, so Mystic Shot. So Sharpsite is very important for ensuring that you're not just losing your cards to removal, especially Trifarian Glory Seeker against those Shadow Isles decks, because it feels like Deep, Thresh Nasus, any other random decks other than like Spiders are pretty much running they're running Vile Feast. So having a way to get around that and still be able to use your Trifarian Glory Seeker is very important. So 3 of Sharpsite is very, very important. We finally get to Trifarian Glory Seeker, and I pretty much said everything that needs to be said about this card. Super important within your deck. Synergizes extremely well with Brightsteel Protector, especially in this current meta. And it's also one of the main units that you want to put the Keen Blade on, because attacking for 5 with quick attack is extremely strong and kind of forces your opponent to try to do something to stop it if you are challenging a really strong unit with that quick attack 5 attack. That's just really, really strong. So yeah, really solid unit. Sucks it can't block, but probably don't want to block with it anyway. So from there, we're going to get Weapon Hill. Weapon Hill is a card I really messed around with the quantity of for a lot. It obviously started at 3. I was sitting on 2 for a while, and I eventually was able to finally get down to 1, and this was one of the most recent changes. There was like 2 really recent changes, and this is one of them. I'm going down to 1 because there's just more impactful cards. I do think this card is underrated. Like we should be seeing this card in more decks that aren't Riven decks, because adding 2 and reforging is really, really strong, especially if you do get the Overwhelm for like Overwhelm decks and stuff like that. I think it's an underrated battle. Like it's cool to use when a unit has 2 extra health, and then now you can just throw that 2 health. Or even just surprise your opponent, like, oh, I'm attacking with my quick attack unit. Oh, I'm blocking with a unit that has higher health. Wait, I have a Weapon Hill, and then now they're no longer, now they're doing a bad play. A good play turns into a bad play really quickly. So an underrated card, but nevertheless less impactful than the rest of the cards in the deck. So it needed to be minimized so that we can make room for the other cards. But you absolutely need at least one of it so that you are still getting that Reforge, because Reforge is extremely important. Next is Cataclysm. Cataclysm is one of the fun combos within the deck that is really cool if you get to pull off. And pretty much what it is you want to Cataclysm a scout unit so that then you get the attack token back. Because if you do Cataclysm with a scout unit on your defensive turn, so your opponent's attack turn, you will get the attack token back, and then we'll still get it again once your opponent's attack turn finishes. So it's a really cool way to just put so much pressure on your opponent. And the best way to actually do it too would be putting quick attack on like Grizzled Ranger or Great Horn or Genevieve, getting quick attack on them too, and then doing the Cataclysm is extra nice when you're able to pull that off as well. So just a really cool card that can lead to some awesome combos, but it's just solid in so many ways too, because you could Brightsteel Protector into Trifarian Glory Seeker defensively and then Cataclysm into a unit. This card has immense synergy with the deck. Like LeBlanc can pretty much Cataclysm into nearly anything from like turn 1 to 5 or turn 3 to 5, because you're not going to play her higher than that any sooner than that. She could pretty much just quick attack into anything, and now your opponent's making they're losing a unit to LeBlanc, and LeBlanc's like leveling faster. Just a very versatile card in this deck, and absolutely one that should have been in the initial deck, and I'm glad that I was able to add it into this more refined version. Then you get to Riven, and there's not a lot that needs to be said about Riven. You guys know how she works. Just realizing that you do not want to generally play her on turn 3 if you have the attack token. She works much better as a defensive unit, and then getting that attack token back so you're actually reforging. That's something to keep in mind for sure. Other things to keep in mind as well is that you really got to be on top of your mana usage so that you actually have enough mana to do the things you want with these fragments, and especially once she's leveled, you actually still have at least 1 mana left over for the Blade of Exile, but sometimes you're going to still want Sharpsite mana, so you just got to really manage your mana correctly and realize, is this the turn I try to go for lethal with Blade of Exile, or do I need to keep mana for this combat trick more than trying to go for lethal? Like, knowing when to do that is extremely important. I think that's where the difficulty of the deck comes in. But yeah, very important part of the deck is just keeping the mana correct for the blades. And then obviously once you've used 3 blades, you get the leveled Riven, and then her power is increased double the first time that you give her a boost. And that's really good with like Glistening Blade. Obviously really good with the Blade of Exile. Just really, really nice stuff. So Riven is definitely a win con in this deck. So also, at all costs, protect Riven. Like, don't play Riven right into a Black Spear and stuff like that. I did that a lot. And yeah, you'll think that you can win without Riven, excuse me, and then you'll realize you can't. So Riven is extremely important as far as like keeping one of your win cons alive. She's not your only win con, but she's definitely your best win con, so you want to keep her alive. Walling Death is a extremely solid combat trick that I really like in the deck. You have a lot of strong attack units, and Walling Death just allows you to kind of just like punish your opponent trying to block certain things, and sometimes even when they attack, then now they can think that, oh, he's only able to block with this, he's not going to want to block with that, and then you block with that one unit, but then Willing Death the other unit, and now you just block, you got rid of 2 things. Like, Willing Death's just really strong, and I really like it as a 2-of in this deck. Grizzled Ranger, the least impactful scout unit, I would say. Even less impactful than the 1 of Valor in this deck, just because having only 1 health is really bad. But the interesting thing though is it still can be extremely impactful, because we're currently in a position where on turn 4 there's not a lot of units that have over 3 health. Like, there really isn't. So if your opponent's in a position where they don't, and you don't really have any other plays, putting the Keen Blade on Grizzled Ranger really isn't terrible, because generally speaking, a lot of people won't want to just lose their unit into Grizzled Ranger that has 3 health, because they're like, it only has 1 health, like, I just want to kill it next turn. I don't want to lose any units to it. But what they'll do is they'll then put you in a position where you get to attack twice with a quick attack 3-1, so you get 6 damage off, and that is so good for you in the late game as far as having that good enough chip damage to where then Riven can finish the game off. So chip damage is everything, so don't hesitate to put quick attack on Grizzled Ranger if it's like your only play, but do keep in mind that it is one of the least impactful scout units to put it on. You would absolutely prefer to have it on Great Horn or like or even like Valor if there's some good trades for Valor, or Genevieve or Quinn, because they all benefit a decent bit more because they don't just have the one health. But yeah, definitely an impactful unit. Another thing to keep in mind with Grizzled Ranger is that he actually gives you a very solid blocker once he does die because of last breath. And yeah, loyal Badger Bear is really good. From there, we got Repost. Repost is a card that I absolutely wanted to keep in the list, just because for me it's felt really solid. It gives you a way of playing around, like one of your worst matchups is as Draven, so it gives you a way of playing around Tri-Beam Improbulator and around Ravenous Flock if you're like really below 4 health. There's no other way. There's no healing your units in Demacia and Noxus. There's no way to heal your units and make it to where they don't have damage. So Easy Draven takes advantage of that and just like kills everything off. But if you have Repost, you can actually at least stop that one time, and it's actually kind of allowed me to win against that terrible matchup sometimes, because I would say that's arguably your worst matchup. So yeah, I like Repost for that reason, but then I also just like it when your opponent thinks they're making like good plays, and then you just like, you keep your Riven alive because of Repost, you keep your LeBlanc alive because of Repost, you keep your Trifarian Glory Seeker alive because of Repost. Like Fleet Feather Tracker can now trade into Azir because of a Repost that gives it +3, and you're also still not losing it. So I think Repost is a really solid combat trick. I think it's a good card, and that more people should be willing to use it. Really solid card. From there, we got Whispering Words. For a while, I thought this deck's too offensive. You can't really put 3 whispered words in the deck, but you really can. Having actual draw is really significant, because one thing you will run into with this deck is you'll run into some weird turns where you have Brightsteel Protector, but you have nothing that feels good to put barrier on, and you don't want to waste it, and you absolutely do not want to waste it. Like, effectively using this card is very vital. So you'll run into those weird situations, and the best thing you can kind of do in those is not do it and whispered words if you actually can just take a little Nexus damage, because yeah, you want to maximize. This card needs to be maximized offensively, generally speaking, so you don't want to make bad defensive plays with it. So Whispered Words minimizes that, gives the deck overall better versatility, gives you some extra draws so that you have better hands, and so that you also don't run out of steam, because this is your only draw, so it helps a lot. And it's really felt good being as 3. I was stuck at 2 for the longest, but 3 feels like the right way to go. From there we got Great Horn Companion, one of your strongest scout units, and generally speaking, if you could play this or Quinn on turn 5, I would always go this, because the 5 health is just so strong, and it's a lot, like, just so hard for so many things to have anything to do about that. Especially once you also put quick attack on it, you're just killing their units, and anything they want to do, they just can't. Like, the Black Spear is not going to trade into that. Like, nothing works. So it's just such a strong card to put quick attack on, and really starts to swing the game in your favor. So huge fan of Great Horn Companion. Quinn is still a solid, significant card in this deck, because 1, you're putting down 2 units, so sometimes that's just so necessary defensively. Just to have some more blocking going on, especially against the Zir Aurelia, where you just need to survive that last turn, and then you're presenting lethal that next turn. Quinn's good for that, and then more importantly, Valor actually having Challenger is so good around the time you're putting Quinn down, to just kind of, let's pull the Nasus all the way to the end, so then Riven can attack into the weaker units and actually present lethal and stuff like that. So Challenger, once again, just really impactful for pulling the strong defensive unit, and then Riven is able to actually present lethal on a much weaker unit. So and then, yeah, if Quinn does level up, she still is pretty impactful upon level up. Prior to that, pretty weak, and going a 1 of her is definitely the way to go with her current design. You can only really run multiple Quinns, I think only in really a Pirate Scouts deck. Everything else can't really afford that. From there, though, we do get into one of the second recent change that I was alluding to, because like I said, Weapon Hilt was the first one. This is the second one. It was Radiant Guardian. I just quickly started to realize that the initial point of this deck was to be actually good into Zir Aurelia, but as that deck's been more refined, and as more people have been playing it and getting more comfortable with it, people are just playing it a lot better now. And I start to see myself just losing a lot more to it. And I realized one of the main reasons that I was losing to it were 2 things. 1, I needed some way to heal my Nexus, because my Nexus was just getting down, and if I could just survive that one next turn, I was presenting lethal the next turn, so I just needed something to keep me alive one more turn. And then 2, I needed something that also really didn't mind the weak attacks from the Blades and from the Sand Soldiers. And that's a 2-in-1 for Radiant Garden. Radiant Garden does not mind weak attacking units. That's just going to give you lifesteal, which is super, super nice in this deck. This deck loves lifesteal. And then secondly, Radiant Garden also yeah, it has lifesteal, so the toughness, so that the stats aren't really getting bothered, the lifesteal, just a really solid unit. Obviously you gotta play it correctly, where you give up a unit and then can actually have the Radiant Guardian where it has lifesteal and tough, so you got to do that correctly. But especially on ladder, where your opponent doesn't know you're just keeping 5 mana so that you can play your Radiant Guardian, it is a good card, and it's really helped push the deck a little bit further. A lot further, honestly, I would say, as far as having a lot more versatility. Like, the Overwhelm matchup feels better with Radiant Guardian. A lot feels a lot better with Radiant Guardian. So huge fan of Radiant Guardian in this deck, because you have no way of healing your Nexus aside from Radiant Guardian in these 2 regions. You gotta play this card. And then lastly, we just got a 1 of Genevieve Elmhart, because she is a very strong scout unit, but the issue with her is just that you often find yourself not with 6 regular mana and then still spell mana to really do anything impactful with the Blades. So that's why 1 of Genevieve kind of makes the most sense, because it's really hard to have enough mana to actually just do enough with Genevieve, because you don't just want to play Genevieve, you really want to also at least be giving her quick attack or overwhelm something, but it's hard to have enough mana for that. So 1 of has been the solid number for Genevieve. But yes, guys, that is going to be the deck. I still almost went to 30 minutes, so I apologize for that, but I hope you enjoy the games. I'll try to minimize this video in some way. I'll try to figure it out so that you guys can actually watch all the games and this not be like an hour-long video. But nevertheless, I want, especially when I'm really presenting you guys a deck like this, I really want to go over all the depth of it with you guys, so that you guys can really understand how it works, and not like take any shortcuts just to have a shorter video, because then you guys won't know what you're doing, and then you'll be like, hey, this deck sucks because I just keep losing. But it's because you need to know what you're doing. So I'm going to give this deck a grade of a tier 3 deck. that's what I'd say it is, just because of the inherent skill it requires. I'd probably say it's a low tier 2 deck if it wasn't for the high skill floor that I think the deck has. Secondly, I would say it is a combo deck. It may be combo mid-range. I don't like, they may be both. I don't really fully know that. So if you guys want to add your opinion onto what you kind of think this more so is, I think it's more combo than mid-range. To me, mid-range is like Scargrounds, Frostbite mid-range, where you're actually like doing a lot more trading. This deck doesn't really it's just so offensive. Like I don't really block, and like Frostbite mid-range blocks because it has Yetis, and Scargrounds blocks because it wants to block for the toughness that it gets through Scargrounds. But I don't do a ton of blocking unless I have the weapons to boost to make my blocks better with this deck. So yeah, it doesn't feel like mid-range to me. It feels more combo-y, and then it's also really aggressive. Like, you attack most turns, so it's also hard for me to call it mid-range for that reason as well. So I'm gonna say it's a tier 3 combo deck, and yeah, it's just it's a lot of fun. And I'm actually going to present you guys with its matchup table now as well, and that's going to show that it's to me its favorite matchups are Exile Demacia. I have an extremely good record. It's like something around 12-3 against Exile Demacia, so I think you're heavily favored in that matchup. And then you're slightly favored pretty much in any other matchup, not really as heavily favored, slightly or decently favored. So the ones that are decent, I would say discard aggro. You're pretty decently favored in that one. I'm like 4-1 against that deck. It just you're just able to do too much to disrupt the combos that discard aggro has to pull off, and especially if you're able to remove Riven. And I think this deck is pretty solid on removing, not Riven, Jinx. This deck is pretty solid on removing Jinx, so I think that matchup is in our favor. Oh, the other deck you're heavily favored against is Mono Fiora. I forgot about that. As long as you play the deck halfway decently, you just don't allow them to use standalone on Fiora like a ton, and then you just can't address her, you should win Mono Fiora every single time. Especially if you also get a good hand of early game units. You already just have too much damage down, and it's really hard for Fiora to compensate for that, or at least Mono Fiora. So Mono Fiora and Exile Demacia heavily favored, and then decently discard aggro, TLC. And I think that's it. And then yeah, the slightly favored ones I would say is Thresh Nasus. I would say you are slightly favored, as long as you play things correctly. And if your opponent has a ton of slays by turn 6 and they get like a huge Nasus down already by turn 6, then you're probably gonna lose. But if they don't get a super strong Nasus down by turn 6, you're generally presenting lethal around that turn. And it's really easy to just kind of do anything to disrupt Thresh with this deck, whether it's the Repost, whatever it is. It's really easy to disrupt Thresh with this deck. So yeah, I would say that you are slightly favored in that matchup, which is extremely impactful for this deck's viability. Slightly favored against Overwhelm with the new Radiant Guardian change. Hexcore Foundry, just not enough removal coming from Ezreal, and especially if they don't draw into that removal, you should absolutely win that game. Frostbite mid-range, I would say you are slightly favored, just because it feels like your combat trick, you have a little bit like more versatile combat tricks, and I don't know, it just feels like your synergy kind of moves a little quicker than theirs. You can run into a little bit of issues if they're getting a ton of Yetis down really early on, but otherwise, I think that should be in your favor. Spiders I never lost to, that felt very solid in our favor. Just felt like something about the way Spiders synergize, and especially just getting rid of Elise. Like, anytime they attack with Elise, you should have Sharpsite something to just stop it. And so yeah, it really disrupts their strategy, because Spiders really likes to level Elise. If Elise could get leveled, I think that's when Spiders is best. J4 Shin feels like you're favored, just because you could just disrupt so much of that that deck synergy, and the deck is a little bit slow, I would say. Which is also works against it, because it's like the deck likes to put down the unit that gets boosted by barrier. I can't think of its name right now. Greenglade Duo is stuck in my head. But the unit that never shuts up and loves getting barrier, I think it's a 1-drop and it's 1/2. They got to set that up and not really attack with it at first, and you're already challenging those. It's really hard for that deck to get stabilized the way it wants to, with you already challenging into its impactful followers. I would say TLC is decently in your favor, because as long as you can get Riven down, there's no real good way for that deck to remove Riven. And once you got Riven, especially if you can get Great Horn Companion in a good spot as well, you should just win before the Watcher comes down. But that deck can be played differently to make it to where it's not as much in your favor. And that's actually a decent one. It should probably be changed to slightly, honestly, if I'm being honest. Deep, I would say, is slightly in your favor. As long as they don't go deep super quick, you should always be deep. Matron Cythria, if you can play it right, and especially if you can make an unfavorable trade when they try to go for the like if you can stop the lifesteal that they're trying to do with the underwater or dark water scourge, whatever it's called, into Mask Mother. They do their little combo, they get the 7/7 with lifesteal down. If you can disrupt that in any way to where they don't get the lifesteal health, you should win prior to them getting down. Cythria, Nightfall felt pretty good. It just feels like you could play around everything, and like one of Nightfall's most impactful cards is Diana, and I feel like you got a lot of ways to make Diana go bye-bye. And if you can do that, I think that's very solid. And I haven't really played the Lee Sin matchup, but just from what I know about Lee Sin, I would say it's a little too slow to where you should be winning prior to Lee Sin being able to present lethal. And I think most of those decks that accomplish that are generally good matchups against Lee Sin. So those are the favored matchups. As far as the unfavored matchups, I would say that Edge Draven is heavily unfavored just because of the way that the Edge Draven not only doesn't really play units other than Ballistic Bot, so that's not in your favor because you have all these challenge units, you have all this stuff, and you want to actually be wiping units. You don't want to just be attacking. They work best when they're actually removing units. So they don't really remove units. They don't really play units. They just want to remove yours, and that feels really bad for a deck that has all these cheap or these low health units. It's really easy for Edge Draven to remove all of them and then just play a Ezreal and then just win with that. And they have enough combat tricks to just, it feels like almost to stop anything you try to do. And just decks that have just a ton of removal are really strong against this deck. So definitely a matchup to attempt to avoid. I would say the other one, the other ones would all just be decently out of your favor. So I would say Azir Aurelia, unfortunately, just with the way that deck so crazily has this insane potential to pop off, it's just still decently not in your favor. Hopefully with a some type of balance patch to that deck, it can get toned down just a tad to where with the inclusion of Radiant Guardian, that then you start to have a more favored matchup against that deck. I would say that against Azir Noxus, it's decently outside of your favor, just in the way that if they do draw Azir by turn 3 and they really start like high rolling you pretty quickly, you should struggle to do anything against that, and then they can play Decimates for the win. But I feel like with the inclusion of Radiant Garden, that may be a matchup I need to play a little bit more to see if it's decent, because I actually already just recently won that matchup with the exclusion of Radiant Garden, so that may be a matchup that needs to change to slightly over still being decent. TF Fizz, I haven't really played the matchup, but I assume it's decent just because of the removal that TF Fizz has, and then especially because TF also has Red Card, and Red Card is extremely strong. Any card that just deals 1 damage to all your units or any units is really strong against this deck. That's what gets frustrating with like Turbo Thralls and even Overwhelm with Ice Shard being an option. So yeah, I think that one's decently out of your favor. Scargrounds is definitely decently out of your favor, especially if they're playing Ember Maiden. It's really out of your favor because you just don't have much you can do about that, since it is a round start effect rather than round end. So no Sharpsite, nothing really plays around that. Scargrounds also likes Death Lotus. This is an extremely bad card for your deck with all the 1 health units. And yeah, just Scargrounds also, it can really just always kind of has that extra chill trait to where then you don't quite kill their unit, and then now they're pushing all this damage onto you, and this deck doesn't like to block, like I've kind of alluded to a lot already. So yeah, Scargrounds is a decently out of favor matchup. You can absolutely still win it, but if they get the cards that they need, like Death Lotus or Ember Maiden and stuff like that, you can find yourself on the back burner pretty quickly. So yeah, definitely not a matchup you really want to see. And the last one I'd say that's decently out of your favor is the Ruben pile, and that's going to be the deck of like Zoe with Vi. And this is another one that may be only slightly, because I have won this matchup a few times, even though I lost it. But I would just say if it's well played, and if they draw right, you should almost always lose, just because Hush is already a little difficult, especially because Hush is so bad for Grizzled Ranger, because not only does he lose Scout, but then he also, he doesn't make the Badger anymore. So yeah, Hush is tough. Like, Hush is so good against Riven when she's leveled. Hush is extremely tough for this deck in general. Even though this deck is really good against Demacia Targan, just because that deck doesn't quite get started quick enough. But Hush still has a lot of viability, and when you add Hush with removal, such as like Mystic Shots and Get Excited, it gets really tough. But you can win the matchup, so maybe slightly, but I'm going to stick to decent, that just with the removal on top of Hush as well. Just a tough matchup, and then they also still have like Star Shaping to heal off your damage and stuff, so you really have to play that matchup on your toes to win, but it's absolutely winnable. From there, I'd say the ones slightly out of your favor are like TK Soraka, because you have to attack each turn, and attacking with things like Fleet Feather Tracker early game can lead into not killing their units, and then they're just winning through their landmark. So that can get a little frustrating. Like if they get the perfect hand, you should lose to TK Soraka, so that's where it's out of your favor. But if they have a little bit more versed hand that's not as perfect, you can play pretty correctly and also win the matchup. So I'd say it's slightly out of your favor. Oh, the other one that's heavily is any Swain deck, because it seems like every Swain deck is playing things like Death Lotus. They're playing what's that other card? Other 2-drop. Oh, it's 3-drop card. Death's Hand. These are super bad cards for you. You don't want to see these cards. Gully is really bad for you, just because you're attacking. You want to keep attacking, so stun is really, really bad, and especially when the stun can also be punished with a 1 mana cost spell in Ravenous Flock. Just so much for you to have to play around, and also removal, and even Culling Strikes for Riven. It's just, you just are walking on eggshells that entire matchup, so pretty much any Swain deck is also really heavily out of your favor. But back to the decents. We finished off the decents, so the slightly ones was, like I said, TK Soraka. I would say Terrible Thralls again, just because it's hard to, if they really get down the 8-8 real quickly, you don't really got good blockers, so that feels bad. And then it's hard to kind of push the lethal damage you need into units that have 8 in defense or in health. And then also Ice Shard. Ice Shard is just super, super also playing against you as well in that deck. And then sometimes they have Blighted Ravine, which is also hard to play around. Just a lot of stuff really hard to play around. Violet Ravine, once again, being round start, so you can't Sharpsite to play around it. So really tough stuff. And Pirate Aggro, I would also say slightly out of your favor because of the Fiora deals 1 to your units, so that can be a little difficult. And I don't know, it just feels like that matchup has a decent chance to get high roll. I haven't played against it a ton, so I'm not super certain in that opinion, but I would say that it's probably slightly in their favor. But other than that, those are the main decks I'd say. Anything else I didn't play around enough to say favored or unfavored. So if you guys play around it and you figure out more matchups, definitely let me know. If you don't agree with any of that, let me know as well. But let's get into those games and let's see how the deck fares. Alright guys, so we did get a Zerarelia opponent here, so let's see what we can do in this game. This Rolling Death's generally really good in this matchup, but I think we just want units though. Pretty sure we want units. Yeah, especially LeBlanc. Getting LeBlanc's really, really good because that kind of forces a homecoming usually. Yeah, and there we go. Cool. So I'm going to start with Fleet Feather just because, you know how this card works. It needs another unit to help it stabilize. So we'll start with that. Cool, so we get 4 damage off, which is actually a huge deal. When I attack on 2 and my opponent doesn't have a play on turn 1, that goes super well for us, so very good start, I would personally say. So I will block that if he attacks with it. I will absolutely block that. Obviously if he has a Shapestone, he doesn't have a Shapestone, so now we know he does not have a Shapestone, because he goes for that if he has a Shapestone, or at least I assume he would have. So no Shapestone, pretty big deal. So we can do this into this and just go wide, which is probably the play. But the idea of getting Grizzled down and forcing him to do something... Yeah, and I feel like we can get a better Brightsteel Protector off. Brightsteel Protector is just such a good support unit that you really want to maximize its potential. We'll just ignore all this. It's a lot of damage, but we need to force him to be defensive. And yeah, cool. That is a very good trade for us. Alright, so he shapestones there, so that is fine. Now we actually have a target for Fleet Feather, so that's super fine. So he must have top decked that. I really don't know why he wouldn't have used it the last turn. Really odd if you ask me. Alright, cool. We get super solid damage off on the Vizier. And I actually did that backwards. I should have, LeBlanc should have been the last thing I attacked with, so I missed out on like 1 extra damage, which actually could be pretty impactful, so let's try not to do that moving forward. But yeah, not too bad so far. We don't like Green Glade Duo at all, but we do have a Shapestone, so we should be okay here. So yeah, I think we just go Rune Weaver. We can even get a Blade Fragment too, and we get the Overwhelm one, which gives us a better chance at ending things off this turn. We will block a Sand Soldier here with our Badger. That seems like a pretty good block here. And once again, since we have this Sharpsite, we should be okay. I think I can, yeah, I should be able to, yeah, let's throw that down too, why not? So, we will do that. We will, I guess I can do that. And then I will just do this. And that looks pretty good to me. Or do I just stop that? And then 5, yeah, let's probably do that. And then we can just open. And we're pushing lethal on open. Leaves me with 5. Against a level Azir. Yeah, let's just do that. Just because he has no units down. He has no units down. Other than Azir, obviously. Other than Azir. 5's really low, but as long as he doesn't like crazy high roll us, I don't know how we can get screwed here. So what I can do is attack, is hold that into the Azir. Yeah, no, we need to get another unit down. We need 1 more unit down. So I guess I go, do I Genevieve? I probably just Genevieve. Yeah, I probably just Genevieve. Because I can't Brightsteel and Quinn, which really sucks. Which is where another Badger here would have been a little bit better. Or do I not? I probably actually don't Genevieve and I just Quinn, because then we can still afford to heavy Blade Fragment, which is a pretty big deal. So yeah, let's Quinn. He can attack here, but LeBlanc can block one, and I will block 1 with the Rune Weaver. Alright. So that's a pretty big deal, but we can do that. Or do I actually just block with this, just in case he has Shapestone? Oh, Shapestone actually wins the game, so I have to block like this? Yeah, I have to block like that, because Shapestone otherwise wins the game. So we'll do that. I guess I do this actually, just so we can grab the Azir here. Breathe. It's great for us. No Shapestone, please. No Shapestone. No Shapestone. Let's go! Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what you like to see. That is what you like to see. Awesome, 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 awesome. Great. So we have an interesting matchup here in Azir Noxus with Darius, and this is a deck that's gaining quite a little bit of steam right now. So we're gonna full mull. Definitely do not want all those spells, and that's a much better hand. Like that was actually a really good draw for us. So we have a lot of the tools we want. This allows us to trade with this. We'll take that anytime. I've got the reins. We will summon. He has to have a unit. And if he has a unit, then this isn't as wise. Yeah, I think he has a unit. Oh, I don't think he summons that if I go Trifarian Glory Seeker though. I don't think he summons that. Yeah, he would have summoned that first. He would have summoned that first if I would have went Glory Seeker. Definitely take this trade again any day. Okay.
I was born in battle and raised by war.
So we'll do that.
That's right.
He won't be able to block that. Or he'll do that. Ooh, misplay. I think he still just attacks there. I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Quick attack. Yes. If he can't stop this, this is going to feel great. This is going to feel great. And he shouldn't be able to because, yeah, Sharpsite, we got solid amounts of mana. So, yeah.
War Mason, reporting for duty.
That is fine with us.
Make the Empire proud.
Yes, thank God. It feels like you never get the quick attack blade with the first one, but that was very impactful for us. Okay. So if he opens attack, he's gonna get a pretty strong attack off on us, but there's not much we could do about that. I would open, he probably doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. So yeah, we definitely just do that. Cause now it gives us a free block on something. And we can do that. And do that. Right. It's gonna put us all the way down to 9 though. Do I do this? So I at least don't lose the unit? I'm not sure I do. Maybe I actually do though. Cause yeah, he's still gonna have quite a few units left, so yeah, let's not lose this. So decimates always get tricky at the end of the games with this deck. It's just always like, alright, time to play the decimate game. We're pushing a lot of damage this turn. We probably are pushing lethal, maybe. There should be a huge amount of damage. We should still be able to kill through that, right? 6? Yeah, we kill through 6. Cause yeah, 7. Oh yes, and we're gonna get the blade for Riven. You gotta be kidding me. Yeah, I think we just win here. Quick attack, let's go. Oh, I wish we already had that. Because if he's smart, he'd probably just take the Darius trade. Because you lose otherwise. If he's smart, he takes the Darius trade here. I think he loses either way, but we'll see. Pretty sure he just loses. Yeah, you just lose to that. Yeah, and he can't fever into either of the units to kill them. That only does 3 damage. They have 5 health, so he just loses here, and he probably realizes that. Hit him with one of those. Hit him with one of those, and we'll just grab the Darius. He shouldn't have any. Yeah, there shouldn't be anything here.
Your path ends here.
Shouldn't be anything here. 1? Alright, that doesn't matter. Cool. And that's what you like to see. That is what you like to see. Nice. So here we get one of our worst matchups, which is Edge Draven. Very popular deck right now because it is supposed to be a Zerarelia answer. Just considering that it has so much removal, and obviously a ton of the cards in a Zerarelia have very little health. But that's the same thing with our deck. I already alluded to it. We got Blade Squire, Fleet Feather Tracker, Rune Weaver, and Grizzled Ranger, as well as LeBlanc. Just a ton of cards that really just don't have the I almost want to keep this, but we cannot. But yeah, just a ton of cards that really don't have a lot of health, which is very bad against a deck like a deck like Ezreal Draven. And the other annoying thing about Ezreal Draven is it doesn't really try to play units, which is very bad for our challenger units. They want to attack into things, but instead this deck just wants to remove our stuff. It doesn't really want to play units other than Ballistic Bot. That's the one unit it's okay with actually playing. So I'm pretty sure that we would just lose our LeBlanc if I tried to play it here. I can't Sharpsite it right now. So what we probably do, I guess we could just do this and then bank the mana. It's just, what would we do next turn? We wouldn't really have a play next turn. So I'd probably force him to use his removal on Fleet Feather here. I think that's our only real play. I don't want to put the quick attack token or blade fragment on him. Alright, cool. So he doesn't remove Fleet Feather, which is fine. I feel like if I would have put the quick attack, he would have. But yeah, I think that was our best play there, because playing LeBlanc without Sharpsite mana would have resulted in a dead LeBlanc. And Whispered Woods, pretty good draw here. It would have been cool to also get a unit, just considering that he's actually playing, this deck's playing units. I can't believe it, it's playing units. I don't want to mana out yet, so let's watch him attack first. Yeah, because he has to attack here. We just skipped that. Alright, so I wanted him to just attack first before I overly committed to anything, and yeah, getting Riven getting Riven at the start of the turn would have been really nice. He could have removed her with the Thermomatic Beam, but that's a lot to commit to a card, so I would have been fine with that. So here I think we definitely go LeBlanc. Riven's not really a good card to play offensively unless she's already leveled. Prior to level up, Riven can be a little disappointing prior to level. I guess I can. Is that proper use though? Because it always feels like we don't get this fragment enough. So I guess so, because it at least forces him to like do something. And I don't know. An attack with just LeBlanc feels a little underwhelming. A little. I'm talking all weird. Alright, so he's not removing our units. He's definitely saving. He's enjoying saving those removal spells. Because I'm almost positive he has to have a Get Excited. He has to have a Mystic Shot. I know how this deck generally functions. Okay, so he actually probably drew into all of his maybe what is it called? Ravenous Flocks. That's probably what he drew into. And if that's the case, rather than going, yeah, maybe we just, yeah, let's try that. Because then what does he do? If you use it to stun one of the other units, that is fine by me. Alright, that's fine. And I'll wait for his attack because it is absolutely coming. I'll trade this into that and this into that. We will take 7 damage here, so that's like pretty bad. But kind of is what it is. Yeah, taking the 7 down. I actually probably should have put Riven down just so I could block this, because taking 7's really not ideal here at all. But we will get our Riven down on a defensive turn, which is really good for us. So we kind of have to try to win this turn. We'll see what we can do. So I can go Genevieve, and I'll still have 4 mana left over. 7, so he can't quite put down, what's it called, his finisher. Can't think of its name. We probably actually just go Gerhardt though, just because then we can still, yeah, we could still Bryce, still protect her if we do that. So, or Great Horn, not Gerhardt, Great Horn Companion. So he's gonna try beam, and my only counterplay to that is this. I wish this card costed more when it does such impactful things. So yeah, my only counterplay to a Tri-Beam is this, and I don't like committing 4 mana here right now. I really don't like that. So I guess we have to let it go. Yeah, I'm guessing this is, it would be a misplay to play this, yeah. So we'll have to let that go. And that's an annoying card for him to get to. But what we can do here is we don't have the quick attack blade, so we pretty much have to Bright Still. How many blades has she seen? Only 1. So Bright Still. To level Riven, we would, if we Bright Still, we're gonna go out of Sharpsite mana, so that doesn't feel good. But I feel like we pretty much have to make this play. Or I guess I can attack first. Yeah, maybe we attack first. Yeah, let's attack first. I still don't get the freaking quick attack. I'm telling you, it's just so hard to get the quick attack token. So yeah, I think we just take that. Let's see what he does here. What do you do? Maybe playing the Overwhelm wouldn't have been the worst there. Cause that would have been some good Overwhelm damage. Alright, so now I have to just attack, because if I try to Bright Still now, we know a goalie's coming our way. It is a slow spell, so he needs us to pass initiative to be able to play it. So yeah. Let's do this.
I won't look back.
So do I play this now? Or do I just hold off? It's just I don't attack with it if I don't. I think what we can do now is we can do this. Yeah, we can do this, and then if he doesn't goalie the Great Horn, then we can use the blade on Riven. I think that's our best play. Cause yeah, this super baits him to stop this. And then it allows us to get a Riven attack off likely. Alright, cool. That's fine. Perfectly fine.
I know my purpose.
So let's see what he blocks with.
For the lost.
Cool. So I think that was played correctly. I think I played that correctly. This is actually a really good draw here, because we just need blockers. Like, we want something cheap to block into that. That's annoying, but really not that big of a deal. Especially once again, since we drew Blade Squire, that was actually a really, really good draw.
I'm sorry.
He can goalie it now though, which he probably does. Or does he not? Tri-beam. So we definitely do this. That should keep us safe from the tri-beam. Yes, it sure does. And that's pretty much all his mana. We don't have any other units we can play though, but we'll definitely block that, and block that. Oh, bro, that's so stupid. Oh, okay. He summoned a, why would he not just finish that one? Very interesting choices. I'd actually block this. Yeah, so I'm going to block that. Leaves us at 3. We probably just lose though. Not ideal at all. Yeah, living on 3 feels bad, but this is a poor matchup, so it's not like we expected to win this. It's not like we expected to win this. So yeah, if he does get excited, we just lose. Unfortunately, we did not draw our Radiant Guardian. What can I do here? Do I even do I do this right now? I probably don't. I think I pass. He has to have Ravenous Flock. I pray he doesn't. Okay. Sadly, Get Excited is a fast speed spell, so if he has it, we are in trouble. I have to do this to start and just pray he doesn't have Get Excited. He probably does though. He got really impactful cards off the Tri-beam as well. Some pretty good cards, honestly. That's like the luck that you run into with this deck is do you get actual good units from Tri-beam? And Tri-beam is just such an important card for this archetype. I've seen it fall apart a lot without Tri-beam, so him having 2 in some pretty good spots to get my LeBlanc and to get a pretty good unit to attack offensively with into my Riven was very good for them. But yeah, if he doesn't have Get Excited here, we may be onto something. Obviously he can goalie here. We don't have a way to stop that from being impactful. Okay, he does go for that. That is fine. Yeah, we don't have any way of stopping that. So maybe I probably shouldn't have done this. Because Riven, I knew Riven was not going to get to attack here, so maybe that wasn't the smartest play. I feel like we have to Genevieve.
The wood can't fight back, but I can.
So Genevieve will get stopped from attacking. What we can do is these two.
No turning back now.
Let's try that. And if he tries to block this one with that, I will Sharpsite. Oh no. Okay, so he pretty much had what he needed anyways. And yeah, we didn't draw Radiant Guardian, so that isn't it. But we were still, I felt like we were still pretty close. The other thing about this archetype that's really hard for us to win against is the stun. We have a very offensive deck, and offensive decks are inherently very held back by stun. So we're putting a lot of mana into like 1 unit or 2 units. Stuns are extremely impactful against us. So I felt like I played that as best as I actually could have. Just unfortunately there, all the stun and the tri-beams are just very situationally opportunistic for my opponent. So unfortunately we were not quite able to get over the hump there. I think that should be it for the showcase though. So I appreciate you guys watching this video today. Really means a lot for me. I hope you guys really enjoy this deck. As always, for Create or Replicate, there will be a code in the description for this deck. And yeah, I hope you guys can have a little fun for it, because I think I finally refined it. So I was very excited to get this video out for you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for the support. More content coming. So make sure you're subbed up. All the support, likes, subscribes, and especially comments. Oh my god, actually getting comments as late has been so heartwarming. So thank you to those of you who leave comments. You guys are goated. I'll see you guys in the next one. This is Optima signing out. Peace.